Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to go over my Aetherdrift Prerelease for Magic the Gathering. This is another set that kind of pushes the boundaries of the world building in Magic, and it's kind of like a hodgepodge of all sorts of different planes as they gather together for a big race. It's got some future racing vibes, some contemporary Fast and the Furious type of vibes, even has some Mad Max post-apocalyptic type racing elements as well in the theme. I don't know how much I like that theme, but what keeps me coming back to Magic, even with some of these less interesting themes, is the gameplay. And so I went to pre-release, and this is the kit that you get when you go to pre-release. As usual, the pre-release experience is pretty bare bones. It's just a sealed deck, and there's nothing really else going on with it. This is the kit. If you look on the side, you can rip this out, and it says ice in your veins, fire in your engines. Inside you have some artwork and the usual counters and punch-out tokens that are available in the overwrap of the deck box. And then we have the deck box itself, which looks like this. Inside you get one spin-down token using the current black with colored inking model and the checkered flag icon, which is kind of silly to see on a Magic product, but that's where we are right now. You also get 6 packs of Magic the Gathering, and then your promo card. The little package includes your promo card, in which case I got the Draconautics Engineer with its little special foil stamp, and then you'll also get one of these tokens which you can use to track your speed. And finally you get your guide for how to build a pre-release deck, which is the same thing that you've seen for quite a while now. On the back it is just an advertisement for Aetherdrift, so no real theme added to this part. There is an update to the pre-release packs. They no longer put codes in the packs anymore, but I discovered when I logged into Magic Arena that if you joined a pre-release and your Wizards account is connected to your Magic Arena account, they'll just give you the 6 packs for joining pre-release. So no more free codes to give away packs anymore, but at least you can still get the packs from joining pre-release. So there's that. You also get a card divider, which on one side has the checkered flag with the Planeswalker symbol, and then on the other side, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but I got the Chandra Nalaar driver's license, I guess. It's a little amusing. This kind of replaces the theme that was missing in the fold-out here. Now I will show you the cards that I opened. So here's everything that I opened. As you can see, black and blue are slightly higher in total count of cards, and the rest of the opens kind of lead in multiple directions. And so I had a dilemma because I wasn't aware that the pre-release kits were already handed out and they were building, and so I was about 30 minutes behind. I had 30 minutes left to build the deck, so I had to evaluate and build really fast. To that extent, I looked at all the power that I had, my strongest cards, and there were quite a few good cards in this particular pool. We have Samut the Driving Force, a very strong 3-color card. We have Zahur Glory's Past, which was a really good black and white card. The Bright Glass Gearhulk, which is also quite a strong card, and I actually have 2 1-drops that it can search up. And then in red and green, I actually had multiples, as you can see, with Samut, Rocketeer Boost Buggy, and the Boom Scholars. And so there are many different combinations of colors to take a look at here. And I first took a look at somehow getting a way to play the Bright Glass Gearhulk, and so I combined white and green, took a look at that combination. I felt like it was reasonable overall, but the problem with this combination is that I had only 3 pieces of removal, and 2 of which were the Silk and Strength combat tricks, and everything else was creatures. And white wasn't that strong in terms of its overall body of creatures. It had a lot of decent bodies on the lower end of the curve, and that's pretty much all it was doing aside from the Detention Chariot, which I guess is also a bit of removal there. But basically I had to play these 2 colors entirely to the board and hope that I can just win from board strength as opposed to anything else. That led me to be a little iffy, and there wasn't a ton of synergy because it wasn't like I was doing the mounts and vehicles thing in this combination, and so I was kind of hoping to just get there with the Bright Glass Gearhulk. The other color combinations that I looked at are white and black. Again, the problem with white not having anything but creatures made itself apparent, and then black's top end are those Sheffet Archfiends, which will kill pretty much all my white creatures and also do damage to my own black creatures. And then I don't have reliable ways to get up to 7 mana anyways, and no kind of raised dead effects in order to get them out of the graveyard any faster. And so that left me not too excited about playing that particular combination. I didn't have a lot of synergy between black and blue either. Despite the fact that they have the most number of cards, they also have the most number of cards that I would want to play. And so that left those two out. And then ultimately, I started looking at this combination of multicolor cards here. And I wanted to play Summit because Summit seemed to have some of the most interesting potential power if I can go wide enough. And the pair of Boom Scholars and their exhaust discount, as well as the Rocketeer Boost Buggy, which itself has an exhaust ability, made me really think that I could maybe combine these two lesser card count colors of Gruul and build a deck. And then splash Summit because I have multiple points of fixing in these two colors specifically. And so that's the direction I ended up going. So this is the deck that I built. As you can see, it leans really heavy on the low end, but there is kind of a ramp built into this deck because I want to get to all of these really powerful 6-drops. And so the way that I'm getting there is with the 2 Gilded Godas, as well as the Lumbering Rolled Wagon and the Starting Column. That is 4 different sources of ramp that can get me into casting these things. And the ramp is kind of important for this deck because it is an exhaust deck. And so we have the Boom Scholar helping me use that mana more efficiently to trigger exhaust on the Draconautics Engineer, as well as the Camera Launcher, which I sort of threw in the last minute because I needed an additional card to hit my 40 cards. And then I also had to throw in some Silken Strengths to act as removal because I didn't have a lot of options aside from the Crash and Burn, Run Over, and Lightning Strike. And I felt like I needed a little bit more to get there, especially because there's going to be a little gap between playing these cards here and going up here. But again, the exhaust really helps because it gives me something to do with my mana in between here and here. And then once I get to my 6-drops, I'm going to have a lot of options. And the Ketrodon's in there mostly because I can cycle it if it's just holding up space in my hand. But the Autarch Mammoths are very strong. Summit is hard to cast, but because I'm in green, I have Gilded Goes Create Treasures. I have fixing to get to Summit. So I decided to keep her in as a splash. In addition to this, I added 2 plains, 8 forests, and 7 mountains for a total of 17 lands. And even though I have the Lumbering Rolled Wagon and the other ramp spells here, I think I needed the extra lands to make sure I could get reliably up to casting these things and triggering my exhaust effects. And so that's the deck. Alright, and then we were off to play some games with this deck. And so my first opponent was running a mirror match with a red-green deck. And in the very first game, my opponent got off to a really fast start with an exhausted Spire mech cycle, and so I was on the back foot from the very beginning. And they also managed to remove my threats, and then they played Far Fortune, and from there on I was toast. There was no way for me to come back. Whenever they attacked, I was already at a low life total, so they were just going to win that one, and they did. In the second game, I was on the play again, but this time I managed to build a board, and my opponent didn't have as fast of a start. And then by the time I was playing my Mammoths, I pretty much was able to build so large of a board that even Far Fortune couldn't turn things around for them. And then I played Samut, and Samut made everything a plus X plus O, which made the 3/3 elephants I was generating very, very dangerous. I could just swing with those safely and leave everything behind a block, and that pretty much cemented the deal for me. In the third game, things were actually surprisingly close throughout the game, and I actually had a significant lead on life, and so I decided to swing out because they didn't have lethal on me, and I would be able to win on my following turn, but they actually had the card Full Throttle, which gave them additional combat steps, and that's all they needed to turn the game completely around in their favor and defeat me. And so I lost the first one, 1 and 2, and we went on to the next match. My next match was up against a red-black deck featuring Hazoret in the card pool, and they were playing the Start Your Engines speed deck. In the very first game, I had the mulligan down to 5, first due to drawing only 1 land, and then due to drawing all lands and 1 very expensive card. On 5 cards, I kept it. Unfortunately, my opponent was able to, play cards, and I was stuck on 1 of my colors, which filled my hand with red cards that I couldn't cast. And so I ultimately lost that one really quickly, with Hazoret beating down on me within turns. In the second game, things turned on my opponent for bad luck, and while I was on the play, they got mana screwed after keeping a risky hand, and were only able to draw their mana towards the end, and by then I was already casting Summit and smashing for a lot of damage, and so I won that one because the random number gods favored me. And in the third match, my opponent mulliganed once and kept a one-lander, and they had mostly 2-drops in their deck, so they thought that they'd draw their second mana. They never did, and I was carving out, and after not drawing any lands for 2 more turns, they decided to call it quits and give me the win. And so all of these games were decided by the random number gods deciding to favor or disfavor one of us, and so I won this one 2-1, but it wasn't the most satisfactory win. The final match was up against a 5-color deck, which was primarily blue and red, and this was an opponent that was actually playing a cycling deck. And so this was a really interesting set of games. The first match, my opponent got mana screwed, and so I just won that one because they couldn't cast a number of their red cards, and so they were cycling while I was, throwing creatures into their face and smashing forward the win. The second match, my opponent got their cycling engine online, and they were able to get a really big flyer and other cycling payoffs going, whereas I was just stuck playing some of my lesser creatures, of which many died in the process of trying to keep myself from losing. And eventually my opponent won out because I wasn't able to mount enough of a threat to deal with their cycling effects, and they got the win there. On to the final game. I think that this was a bit more even. I mulliganed to 6, but I was on the play and we were both playing a lot of cards out, but my opponent was doing a lot of cycling to beef up their one creature into a very large creature, and eventually what happened is we were fairly stable for a bit, and then I just went so wide that I just needed to turn all my creatures sideways to kill them in one shot, and so that's what ended up happening, and that's how I ended up going 2-1 in the final match and 2-1 for the entire tournament. For participating in the tournament at Emerald Knights, everybody gets 2 packs of the current set, in which case I got 2 packs of Aetherdrift Play Boosters, and that's pretty much it. There wasn't much else in the way of theme going on there, and how I felt about the set is split. I actually kind of enjoyed the mechanics and the sealed gameplay, at least, of this particular set. I think that it's not too fast and too reliant on any particular theme for it to play out as a pretty good sealed deck experience. And I feel like it's going to play out fairly well in draft as well, but I don't know for certain, so I'll have to play that. You can check my channel to see my draft videos and streams in the future if you want to subscribe. I also don't know how I feel about this theme, which is just kind of a hodgepodge. I know that maybe this is a setup for the incoming Universes Beyond being melted into Standard, and I'm not really excited for that either. Fortunately, I can just give up playing Constructed, which I don't really play that much anyways, and so that doesn't impact me too much. But it does kind of feel weird when you think about the theme and the art. Everything just looks like a whole bunch of various stuff mashed together, and it's not exciting as a result of it. Now, once in a while, having stuff mashed together isn't too bad. When you had War of the Spark with all the Planeswalkers gathering in one place, there's still an overarching theme that was interesting enough to hold it together. And it's not like I'd have a problem with a racing theme per se, but when you're racing elephants and motorcycles and rockets and high-tech stuff and super low-tech stuff all together in one place, it just doesn't feel coherent, even though the theme is wrapped around the idea of a race. And so thematically, this is one of the least exciting sets that I have experienced for Magic the Gathering, despite the fact that it's about racing, which I don't have a problem with. I think racing is fun. I like racing video games and board games about racing. So it's not the race that's a problem, it's just the mishmash of all the different genres in one set, which creates a lot of disunity in its style. So you have a set that has pretty good mechanics, and then it has some questionable theme choices, and I wish it just went all out in one direction or the other, because I don't mind the future stuff, and I don't mind the fantasy stuff, but I just wanted to have a lot more coherent theme. And maybe that'll be what's going to happen with Dragons of Tarkir, so maybe that's what I'm holding out hope for. Like most pre-releases, there's not much else to the pre-release. You just do the sealed deck and you're done. And you get your prize packs and you walk home. I think I am looking forward to playing this in Magic Arena just because the gameplay seems to be strong, and so I'm looking forward to that. But that's going to be it for me for my pre-release report. If you went to your pre-release, let me know in the comments below how it went for you. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you would like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. I'll be presenting some pre-recorded Magic Arena content regarding Aetherdrift soon. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.